Lecture number 3 of Stylistics. I hope you enjoy it. I will continue this or defining the what is style is, or all of the language, some or all of the language habits shared by a group of people at one time or over a period of time. This is a kind of style. You can say this group of people they have their own habits. They share group of people they share same habits or nearly same habits. So this is their own style. Okay, for example, the style of the Augustan poets, they have their own style because they are a group of people and they share habits together. Effectiveness of a mode of expression. Sometimes that there are some effective expressions. But in this case, it is given a more restricted meaning used in the evaluative sense. Even when there are effective expressions that is being used by a different or group of people, this is a kind of style. The use of word style referring solely to the literary language as characteristics of good, effective, beautiful writing. Okay, some people use style to refer to very good, effective, and beautiful writing because and this is associated primarily or exclusively with the word literature. The generalized definition of the notion of norm, what norm is, style or norm, is the following. The norm is a uniform, exemplary, commonly recognized usage of language elements like words, word combinations, and sentences. And rules of use in speech means at a definite period in the development of the literary language. So this is how we generalize the definition of the notion of norm. What is norm? Okay. The specific characteristics of the literary language norm are stated as follows. What are the characteristics of the literary language norm? First, relative stability. It is spread or expansion, common usage, common obligatoriness, correspondence or compliance with relevant link with the language system usage, tradition and possibilities. So these are the characteristics of the literary language norm. You know, which is relative stability. There is some sort of relative stability. It is spread or expand. It's spread or how does it spread or expand? Uh, how does it become like a common use among different kind of people? How does there is some sort of people are abide to use these literary language norms? Its compliance with the language system music, uh, its tradition and possibilities. How does it follow the language system usage? The fact that there are different norms for various types and styles of language does not exclude once we have like different norms for various types and style of language, this does not exclude the possibility and even the necessity of arriving at some abstract notion of norms as an invariant, which should cover all variants with their most typical properties. So each style of language will have its own invariant and variance. So the norm, therefore, is regarded as the invariant of phonemic, morphological, lexical, and syntactical patterns circulating in the language at a given period of time. While variants of these patterns may sometimes diverge from the invariant, but they never exceed the limits set by the invariant. There are limits, so it does not exceed them. Otherwise, it should become unrecognizable. If it exceeds the limit set by the invariant, so in this case it become unrecognizable. Why language is recognizable right now, because they follow those invariant, or the limits of set by the invariant. Varieties of language or types of speech. It is relevant that communication takes place in different forms and situations, and this is normal, or this is something according to the situation in which the communication proceeds. It is necessary to distinguish between two varieties of language: oral, which is spoken variety, and written variety. So in this sense, we are going to know the difference between oral communication, or oral language, or spoken language, and written language variety. So we have spoken language variety, and spoken written language variety. Of the two varieties of language, oral and spoken, diachronically, the spoken variety is primary. It comes first, and the written one is secondary. It doesn't mean the primary spoken is primary, while written is secondary in terms of diachronically, in terms of the time frame. Each of these varieties has developed its own features. Spoken has its own features, written has its own features, which in many ways may be regarded as opposed to each other. Sometimes that you may see that they are opposed to each other. They are very different. The situation in which the spoken variety of language is used and in which it developed can be described concisely as the presence of an interlocutor. Okay. The written variety, on the contrary, presupposes the absence of an interlocutor. There is no an interlocutor in the written language, while there is in the spoken language. There is someone that you speak to, while in written you don't have that one. The spoken language is maintained in the form of a dialogue. Spoken, it comes in the form of a dialogue. The written in the form of a monologue. The written, it comes in the form of a monologue. A monologue like only just one person, who is the writer is. The spoken language has a considerable advantage over the written language, as the human voice comes into play. So this is why the written language, the spoken language has a considerable advantage over the written language. This is a powerful means of modulating the utterance. So you can modulate your utterance to show if you are happy, if you are sad, if you are shouting, if you are whispering, and so on. Because you do have the ability, or you have the chance to modulate your utterance. As all kinds of gestures together with the intonation give additional information. So in spoken language, you can use your body language, and then you can use the intonation, where you raise your voice, or you lower it in significantly. I mean, like intentionally, on purpose. So these are some of the differences and similarities between spoken and written. The written language has to seek means to compensate for what is lacks. Sometimes that. Therefore, the written utterance will uh, inevitably be more explanatory. Explanatory. They are explanatory, because there has to be more. The written utterance will inevitably, inevitably, inevitably be more explanatory. In other words, it has to produce an enlarged representation of the communication to be explicit enough. You know. So these two varieties are characterized by some typical features. The oral or spoken type of language differs from the written in its written representation phonologically, morphologically, lexically, and syntactically. If to speak, for example, about morphological forms, it is necessary to mention that oral type of speech uses contracted forms. We say I am, not I am, isn't, not is not, can, not cannot, and not are not, and so on. This in the spoken language, the contracted forms of the words. Instead of, as you can see, is not, isn't, is not, can't, cannot, aren't, are not, I'll, will not, will, I don't, I do not, he would, she's, and so on. Uh, driving difference between the spoken and written language is the vocabulary used. The vocabulary used in written is not like the same we use in spoken. There are words and phrases typically colloquial and typically bookish, formal, informal. As a lexical level of oral type of speech, there is a number of peculiarities. Peculiarities. There are some sort of number of there's a number of peculiarities of oral type of speech. Glad to see you. Glad to see you. So these are set expressions, where there are some words omitted and they do not affect the meaning because it is understood from the or guessed from the situation. The use of two subjects when one is sufficient. It is called uh, tautological subject. It's like hashua. It is nonsense. You have two subjects when one is sufficient. So this is called tautological subject. Usually it is a pronoun plus a proper noun. Pronoun plus a proper noun. He is a brute of a man. This John. He is this John. We repeat John here, which is it is being pathologically used here. Oh, that man, he is so poor. Oh, that man, he is so poor. Oh, that man, he is so poor. So it is being used pathologically. The use of unfinished sentence. If you don't come, I'll, but the end is understood from the situation. The use of question in the form of statements. Only the intonation here shows that it is a question. I like tea, so it's not. It doesn't have this the form of a question. It is a statement, but the intonation makes it a question. In the spoken language, it is very natural to have a string of sentences without any connectives. There is no connectives. There is no linking words. Come here late. Had supper and went to bed. Couldn't fall asleep, of course. The evening had been too much of strength, so there is no any connectives here. So in the spoken language, you don't need to. The spoken language makes ample use of intensifying words, interjunctions, swear words, and oath. Swear with and oath. The oral type of speech is more expressive and more emotional than the written one. This expressiveness is manifested in intonation, structural design of the utterances, the use of exclamatory sentences, one number sentences, elliptical sentences, the use of interjection which are charged with emotional meaning. So all this makes spoken speech is more expressive and more emotional. The emotiveness of colloquial language has produced a number of syntactical structure which so far have been little investigated and the meaning of which can hardly be discerned without a proper intonation design. For example, isn't she cute? Don't you tell me that? Which she is. So all these are a number of emotiveness of colloquial language which has its own syntactical structures. Would she's and didn't she come over on the same boat as myself? Clever girl that she is. You are telling me if you look at the structure of these utterances or these number of sentences, structures, you see they are very different. They have their own structure or syntactical structure. Nobody investigate them so that there is no clear and cut why they come this way. It is not spontaneous as the oral speech, written language. The written type is characterized by logically completed sentences with clauses, participle constructions, gerundial constructions, ing, and constructions with the infinitive. So they follow the grammatical set of rules that has been very common in the language. It is characterized by the use of literary bookish words, formal words, by the abundance of conjunctions or other kinds of connectives of different types. Characteristics only of the written variety. Moreover, likewise, nevertheless, eventually, hereafter, furthermore, in conclusion, in other words, on the contrary, and so on. All these are connectives. All these are bookish words connective. Another syntactical, the very syntactical feature, they logically complete sentences with clauses and all other grammatical aspects or terms of written variety. Another syntactical feature of the written variety is the use of completed sentences units. The monologue character of the written language demands logical coherence of the idea because there is no interlocutor. Coherence or of the idea expressed and the breaking of the utterance into spans. Hence, units like the syntactical whole, the paragraph. So the paragraph should be very connective or coherent or cohesive because this why the written varieties has to use or the language has to use the cohesive devices which makes the paragraph well expressed and well built. So this simply you need to look deep in the difference between oral language and spoken language and written language, and you need to look at the difference because we can say this is style, this is written style and oral style. So the spoken style is different from the written style because both have their own different characteristics in terms of their cohesiveness and coherence. So this is why we need to look deep, have like a very that slide, very bright picture about these two the difference between these two languages or style. Thank you very much, dear students, and till the coming lecture, I wish you all good luck.